Good morning. My name is Bhuvan. This is the Indian Express Explain class on StudyIQ English. Let's get started. I have 3 topics for you. Number 1 is to do with exit polls and opinion polls. And from the exam perspective, we need to understand the difference between them, the legality between them, okay, as well as say the basic differences between the Representation of People Act 1950 and 51. Because eventually all the say mechanisms and machinery related to the election process derive their legitimacy from these 2 particular acts. So that's agenda number 1. Number 2, we will go ahead and understand Angkor Wat, that has been designated as the 8th wonder of the world. Okay, it's one of the largest religious monuments globally. So we seek to understand about Angkor Wat, as well as say the questions that I have for you will test your understanding of the religious monuments from the geography perspective. Okay, and then number 3, we have seen the recent wedding photos of Randeep Hooda and Lynn Lashram. Okay, and so from the exam perspective, again, what is of relevance to you is the wedding dress that was worn by the bride, and say what is the significance of it, what is the history behind it, and say how is it related to one of the Vaishnavite sects that we know of. Okay, so that's the agenda of the class. Let's get started. You will find the PDF of this entire lecture uploaded on my Telegram channel at around noon. We'll also have questions that are uploaded regularly, as well as the resource material that is required for you from the examination perspective. Bear in mind, I do not believe in going ahead and spamming you with unnecessary material, which is why my communication insofar as the resources, the questions are limited. Okay, I don't intend to go ahead and overburden you with so much of resources that you eventually do not have the ability or the say bandwidth to go ahead and make use of it. Okay, right. Let's look at the first topic. Last evening, the elections to the 5 states concluded. And as the evening started, you must have seen that, well, almost all the major news channels, regional news channels went ahead and were publishing the exit poll trends and the results that they had collated. Okay, just a second. Author Shivika, just a minute. Bulbul and your neighbor. Good morning, guys. Thanks for joining. Thank you. Okay. So an opinion poll and an exit poll. First, let's understand the difference. So an opinion poll is a pre-election survey. Okay, it's a pre-election survey, which means it happens before the cast of the election vote. Okay, and this is to gather the voters' views on a range of election-related issues. Similarly, your exit poll is something that happens after the people have voted, and this is to assess the support for the type of or the political parties that they have voted for. Okay. Now, this is the basic difference between say opinion and exit. So the question might ask you, say which one is to gauge the voter sentiment, okay, and say the voter sentiment about the political party that they intend to vote. If it is intend to vote, which means that the voting process hasn't happened yet, which means it is opinion poll, right? Now, the projections of this survey can be influenced by the choice, wording, timing. Straight away you realize that something that can be influenced either by say political parties, business interests, or any other stakeholders of the election process. Okay, that is again going to go ahead and hit at the very heart of the election process, because then you are looking at influencing voter sentiments. Okay, and thus the Election Commission of India had to step in. So in this discussion, we'll first understand what are the concerns and the statutory backing regarding both of them, both opinion polls and exit polls. And at the same time, we'll understand what is the approach taken by the other countries, specifically say in the West. Okay, do all of them have a uniform say particular set of rules, or are the rules different? Okay, that is going to be the agenda of this discussion. At the same time, we will go ahead and understand the differences between the Representation of People Act 1950 versus say the Representation of People Act 1951. What are the say primary differences? Okay, Karuna, Harshada, Charu, Koda, Dr. Sriram, thanks for joining, guys. Okay, let's look at it. The statutory backing. So let's go back to 1999. So a constitution bench of the apex court, which means you're looking at a 5-judge bench. Okay, so a 5-judge bench of the Supreme Court says that the Election Commission cannot enforce any guidelines to ban such polls unless you have a statutory sanction. That it needs to be backed by laws, and that needs to be passed by the Parliament itself. Okay, and thus you have the Election Commission that approaches the Law Ministry seeking an amendment to the Representation of the People Act to provide for a ban on both exit and opinion polls. This was demanded by the Election Commission. Now, eventually what you have is that the RPA, the Representation of People Act, is amended. And then you find that restrictions were imposed only on exit polls. Opinion polls were left out. Okay, so the pre-election survey that you do, that is left out. Okay, and thus you have the introduction of section 126 subclause A in the Representation of People Act. What does it say? It says that you put a ban on exit polls from the period between the commencement of the poll. Okay, very, very important. So it does not straight away kick in as soon as, say, you have the model code of conduct that comes in. When does the MCC come in? When the announcement to the election is made by the Election Commission. From that moment very on, your model code of conduct kicks in. But your opinion polls don't start at that time. They are not banned from that time. They are banned from the time the voting for the process starts. Here is the first key difference. And then it finishes until half an hour after the closing of the final phase of the poll. Okay. Now in yesterday's case, first the EC put out a particular release saying, well, from 6:30 p.m. you can go ahead and have the exit polls on the TV channels, which was later clarified to be 5:30 p.m. Okay. Now, after inter-party consultation, so at this moment in the year 2010, you have the exit polls that have been restricted. Okay. Now, the opinion polls, like I told you, have been left out. So the Election Commission once again approaches the Law Ministry to go ahead and say, well, we need to go ahead and amend the law so as to include opinion polls also. Right? That eventually it is something that is happening before the election, and thus can, even though it is justified to gauge the voter sentiment, it is something that is going to sway the public sentiment too. Okay? And thus you have exit polls that were sought to be restricted, but then restrictions have not been followed through so far. Okay, that proposal is still pending. So that's the legality, or say the statutory backing between the representation, between the opinion polls and the exit polls. Now let's go ahead and understand very quickly. Okay, let me add a slide here. So let me go ahead and quickly discuss with you the differences that you may observe between the Representation of People Act 1950 and Representation of People Act 1951. Let's do it very, very quickly. So here is one key difference, straight away you will realize. When you discuss RPA 1950 and when you discuss Representation of People Act 1951, okay, the one key difference that you need to know is that RPA 1950, okay, is essentially to do with all those procedures, right, that are following through before the election has started. Here is one key difference. So for example, you're looking at, say, the qualification, okay, or the allocation of seats, right? The allocation of seats, right? Number 3, you're also looking in the 1950 Act, say, the preparation of the electoral rolls, okay, or the delimitation, preparation of electoral rolls, or say the delimitation of constituencies. All of those particular mechanisms that have to be done before the election process or the voting has begun, the delimitation of constituencies, okay, and so on and so forth, etc., etc. Okay, this is the ambit of the RPA Act 1950, whereas the RPA Act 1951, it essentially provides for the actual conduct. Okay, this is the key difference, so as for you to enable you to remember. Okay, you need not remember all the particular things, that's not humanly possible or advisable. However, you need to have conceptual clarity that RPA 1951 deals with the actual conduct of the election process. So thus you can understand, say, your by-elections. Okay, all those mechanisms that are happening during the election process. Okay, for example, your by-elections, your election offences, your disputes, okay, the rules and regulations for the administrative machinery, okay, your disputes, your offences, all of that are happening during the conduct of the elections are taken as part of the RPA 1951 Act. Correct? So you have also the registration of the political parties. Okay? Are you getting it? These are the primary differences, guys, that will enable you eventually to solve an MCQ. Okay, like I told you, it's very difficult for a student to go ahead and remember the minor differences. Thus, you need to have a conceptual clarity of the macro differences at least. Now, going forward, let's look at the global scenario of the exit polls and opinion polls across the world. Okay, so what you find is in the European Union, you have reporting of the opinion polls, which is the pre-survey, right? With band time frames that go from a full month to 24 hours. So there is no uniformity insofar as the other countries is concerned. Okay, some countries ban it for more than 7 days. Okay, France, it has been reduced to 24 hours ahead of voting day. Again, the pre, right? Similarly, you're looking at UK, where there are no restrictions on publishing of opinion polls. However, the results of exit polls cannot be published until the voting is over. So you can say similar to say the Indian model, right? Similar to say the Indian model is what the UK follows. Now in the USA's case, here is one important say particular point for you to add as an evidence when it comes to say restriction of speech or the freedom of speech that we talk about. Okay, in United States' case, the media coverage of opinion polls is regarded as an integral part of free speech. You see, so when US goes ahead and claims to be the beacon of free speech, if you're asked a particular question on those lines, here is one particular example that you may so quote. That yes, indeed, when it comes to say absolutism or the absolute speech, which obviously is not desired nor expected, but you tend to go towards that direction. Okay, and in that case, you find that the US leads with opinion polls being regarded as a part of the free speech, and publication is allowed anytime. Okay, and then you have the media that goes ahead and self-regulates. You see, because eventually the fourth pillar of the democracy cannot be say intruded upon by any other arm of or the any other stakeholders that function within a democracy. You have your legislature, your executive, your judiciary. They wouldn't like to go ahead and dominate or say decide how say the fourth estate, the media wing should function. So self-regulation is desired and expected from any media agency or media as a whole of an entity. And thus US leads by example once again, as self-regulation is observed by the media entities there. Okay, so this is the global scenario. Now please understand that a comparative analysis of say opinion polls and exit polls in India versus the rest of the countries is something that you ought to have a fair idea of. Okay, so I've tried to capture those particular points in this particular slide. Okay, let's go forward and answer this question very quickly, my friends. Excuse me. Preparation of electoral rolls, delimitation of constituencies, allocation of seats by elections. How many of the above are part of the Representation of People Act 1950? Okay, we have discussed in detail the differences between the RPA 1950 and 51, and so it should be a relatively easy question for you to answer now. Okay, let me know your answers in the comment box. We will be discussing the right answers in the forthcoming next class. Okay, and if you understood the differences, if you understood how opinion polls and exit polls function, then do consider leaving me a like. It will give me an immense boost to my confidence. Great, let's go ahead in 60 seconds or less. The SIP Plus program that is now closing admissions very soon on the 4th of December. This evening batch intensive program for those students who find it difficult to crack say the prelims. Okay, a majority of the students find it difficult to crack the prelims, and that is primarily down to do with two factors. Either the knowledge level is inadequate, or number two, the exam temperament has not been developed. And that is the primary focus, the primary agenda of the SIP Plus Prelims intensive program. Okay, you will find that you have full length tests in both GS and CSAT. You will be provided books in the PDF format of all the books that you can think of from the prelims perspective. And at the same time, this intensive topic based approach, because eventually for prelims, you are looking at the width of the coverage that matters, right? And in terms of mains, again, the width is important, but the depth becomes important too, right? So from the prelims perspective, the width of the coverage is the entire mantra that we at StudyIQ IAS are looking to focus here with the SIP Plus program that now closes admission in just a couple of days. Use the code BALIVE if you would like to get allotted to my batch so that we can go ahead and prepare subjects like geography, environment, RC, CSAT, okay, international relations. All of that will prepare together, and my esteemed set of colleagues will take a look at the other subjects for you. And the entire team, the entire machinery of StudyIQ is entirely focused on making sure that you are best prepared, not just again in the knowledge level, but also in the question solving ability that essentially guarantees or gives you the best chance of clearing in prelims. ठीक है? Harshada, Deep, Kashish, well done. बहुत बढ़िया. ठीक है? देखेंगे answers next class में. Right? Let's look at this now. All you need to know about Angkor Wat, the eighth wonder of the world. right? So we have had 7 wonders till now. The 8th wonder has just been added. Angkor Wat has edged out Pompeii of Italy. So we'll go ahead and understand Angkor Wat, the 8th wonder, built by Khmer king Surya Varman II in the first half of the 12th century. More importantly, here is one fact that you ought to know of. It is the largest religious monument in the world. Okay. So when you talk of religious monuments in the world recently that have been in the news, for example, you're looking at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, right? Jerusalem. If I'm not mistaken, it is in Jerusalem. You're looking at the Hagia Sophia, right? That has again been in the news, okay, in Turkey, right? You have been looking at Borobudur, that has been in the news, right? That is in Indonesia, Java, right? So here is another one, Angkor Wat, that becomes the 8th wonder of the world, the largest religious monument. Now, it was originally dedicated to Hindu god Vishnu, okay, and now it has become a Buddhist temple as, well, eventually there's a lot of congruence between these two faiths, and that is amply displayed at the Angkor Wat, okay. It has been also a UNESCO World Heritage Site since 1992, so close to 20-21 years, okay. Located in Siem Reap in Cambodia. Now, it was the capital of the Khmer Empire, right? Another very important part that you ought to study when you study your medieval history, okay? And thus you find that this empire led insofar as the integration of Angkor Wat's cultural sanctity was concerned with the rest of the world. And thus you find that Angkor Wat is the shining example of that integration, okay? It stretches over 400 square kilometers, and the other important temples that you ought to know of besides Angkor Wat, you have Angkor Thom, Bayon Temple, and the Taprom. Okay, so this is the story of Angkor Wat. Now let's go ahead and understand the key features of this temple complex in fact. Okay, sandstone blocks were used to build the structure. Okay, so it's made primarily of sandstone, protected by a 15-foot high wall and a wide moat. Okay, so you have a defensive criteria that is met by the temple complex. And the towers of the particular temple showcase Mount Meru, which is believed to be the abode of the gods in Hindu and Buddhist mythology, right? And thus you find that this is a shining example, like I told you, of congruence between two major religions, the Hinduism and Buddhism, okay? That's Angkor Wat for you. Go ahead, very quickly, my friends, answer this question for me too. Dr. Sriram, absolutely, I can assure you, Aranya series is on its way, okay? That will happen, I can assure you that. Will just allow me some time to confirm you the schedule and we'll get it started. Okay. Right. Al-Aqsa, Jerusalem, Hagia Sophia, Turkey, Borobudur, Malaysia, Christ the Redeemer, Vatican City. So for any of you, by the way, who like watching movies, yes, you will find the Christ the Redeemer is a major attraction in most movies. Yes. So I'll give you a small hint. If you've ever seen, say, Fast and the Furious and all of those movies, you'll find that this has been included in some of the shots. Right. So let me know your answers in the comment box. How many of the above are correctly matched? Okay. Let's go ahead very quickly. In 30 seconds or less, this set of 18 books that StudyIQ IAS has come up with, very well received by the student community. Okay. And what you find is that this is being offered at a new price, and that price can be guaranteed to you if you go ahead and use the code BALIVE. Right. This set of 18 books being offered in English and Hindi languages, right, are on sale. And so if you are someone who's looking for the complete material that captures the entire essence of the other best materials, okay, it's collated in one place, the hard work is done for you, all you need to do is go ahead and supplement them with your own notes and thus give yourself the best foundational base on which you go ahead and build the dreams of your UPSC expedition, right? So this is something that I would strongly recommend for every student. Go ahead, sign up and buy these books. You will find the sign up link, the link in the description box below, or you can head over to studyiq.com and apply the code BALIVE. Dr. Sriram, you're absolutely correct. Well done. Badhiya. Okay. So you have all seen these photos, guys, right? Very well received. The happy couple, Lynn Laishram and Randeep Huda. So this particular dress that the bride is wearing, right? This is of importance to us now. Okay. So let's look at the particular dress. What is it called first? It's called the Potloi dress or the Poloi dress. So the Maiti brides in Manipur, right? They wear these dresses. Now when you go ahead and look at the history of the dress, which is of great significance to us, by the way, Okay, you will find that it gets its history from the Ras Leela dances. Okay, Manipur has been a very prominent growth center of Vaishnavite sect, right? And thus you find that it is also worn by the Manipuri Ras Leela dancers. Okay, so this cylindrical skirt that the bride is wearing, it is made up of thick fabric and bamboo. Here is one thing that you need to know. So this dress includes good thick fabric and it has a bamboo component to it. And then you go ahead and adorn it with satin cloths and mirrors and glitters. All of that is a part of the Potloi dress. Now who goes ahead and introduces this? So Maharaja Bhagya Chandra, one of the most important names that you can remember insofar as the growth of the Vaishnavite philosophy in Manipur is concerned. Well, that person who prominently went ahead and promoted this was King Bhagya Chandra, also known as Maidingu Chingthan Khoma. Okay, and King Bhagya Chandra is also composing three forms of Ras Leela. Okay, the Kunja Ras, the Maharas, and the Basant Ras. Okay, and this particular headgear that you see that the bride is wearing, right? This headgear, what is this called? It is called Kajeng Lei. It is a traditional headdress crown that is worn by the Manipuri brides. Okay, very, very important once again. Why? Because this is in the news. Everyone has been following these pictures and wishing their best to the happy couple, but from the examination perspective, here is one fact that you ought not to overlook. Okay, eventually it is to do with tradition, it is to do with culture, and thus you need to have a fair idea of it. Okay, now let's go ahead and understand and look at these questions very quickly for me. Chalo. Nritya, pure dance. Nritya, interpretive dance. Okay, Natya, expression through abhinaya. And Prabandha, musical compositions. So here it is. The question that I have asked you is from Manipuri dance, in case you're unaware. Okay, one of the most important dances of India, right? So you will let me know how many of the above are correctly matched. Once again, Nritya, Nritya, Natya, and Prabandha. Let me know your answers in the comment box, my friends. Mohan, yes, I can assure you, Aranya series is coming. Absolutely, you have my word. Stay connected on my Telegram channel. I shall upload the latest updates as soon as I have it for you. Okay? Chaliye. If you have any particular doubts, my friends, okay, you reach out to me on my Instagram channel. Several of you have reached out. Okay, we have been discussing your strategies, your weak points, how to go about addressing them. Okay, several students have reached out to me for geography doubts, and I've been more than happy to help them. So here it is. Consider me as your doubt resolver. If you have any particular doubts for me, you reach out to me on my Instagram channel. Right, let's look at these questions from last class then. Yesterday we looked at the parliament session, that is to begin on the 4th, and we looked at in detail the business advisory committees of both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And therein we ascertained that the Rajya Sabha has 11 members, the Lok Sabha has 15 members, and they have a specific quorum. They can also take up a matter for consideration suo motu, right? And they can have special invitees such as the leader of the house or the leader of the opposition. All of them can be included in these business advisory committees. Okay, so in terms of Rajya Sabha, 11 members is correct. Has no quorum is absolutely incorrect. It has in fact a quorum. It's a committee after all. Okay, and it can take up matters for discussion suo motu, absolutely correct. And what you find is that they meet once before the session starts, so as to have the macro idea of the legislative business that will be taken up during the session. And then after that, weekly once they meet. Okay. In case of Rajya Sabha, you will find it is done normally on Thursday, 4 p.m. in the chairman's office. Okay, Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar's office is where all of these committee members will meet and decide the agenda of the coming days. Right. Question number 2. How many of the above are arboreal mammals? Arboreal to do with tree dwelling. Those live on the trees, those animals, those species. Okay, mammals you're well aware of. So flying squirrel, yes, absolutely correct. Sloth, yes. Slow loris, my spirit animal, absolutely correct. And koala is a marsupial which you can categorize as a mammal, right? So what you find is that all 4 are correct here, right? D being the correct answer. Question number 3. So we discussed the difference between hoisting and unfurling. Okay. Republic Day is going to come in a couple of months, and here is one news that you ought to follow. So once again, for those of you who might have missed the last class, if you're hoisting the flag, which means that you are going to send your flag upwards and then eventually it will unfurl. Whereas eventually in unfurling, you have the flag that is already tied here through a string. You just pull the string and it unfurls. Okay. Hoisting is done on Independence Day. Unfurling is done on Republic Day. The logic being that on Independence Day, this upward movement signifies the birth of the nation. Right? India comes into being on 15th December 1947. Right? We have all read at least the Tryst with Destiny speech. The first lines talk about the birth of the nation. A spirit of a nation long suppressed now finds resonance. Okay? Now finds articulation. That's what Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru had said. So this birth of a nation is reflected in the hoisting of the flag, which is done by the Prime Minister from the Red Fort. Okay. And on Republic Day, what you find is that the nation is already free, and thus this is done on 26th of Jan, that's a Republic Day, by the President. Another protocol issue that straight away you will realize that on the 15th of August 1947, right, India had a Prime Minister in Jawaharlal Nehru, but India did not have a president. Okay, the equivalent or the closest equivalent to the president was Lord Mountbatten, and thus it was not desired that a foreigner go ahead and eventually unfurl or hoist the flag for you. And thus, to avoid that particular protocol problem, it was the Prime Minister who was designated as the person who will hoist the flag on Independence Day. Right? This we discussed in the last class. So the correct statement here being, the President unfurls the national flag on Republic Day is absolutely correct, C being the correct answer. Right? So Eldho, Neeraja, Pooja, Only Shots, Shubham, Harshit, Sonu, Coder, Mandeep, Crystal, Akhil, Satyabrata. Satyabrata, thank you for your message. You are very kind. Gyatso, Abhishek, Vidit, Ayush, Nishchay and Aditya. Aditya, thanks for your mail. I greatly appreciate your feedback, and I hope that together we can go ahead and make sure that you are best prepared for the Civil Services Examination 2024. Thanks for your faith and for your message. Right. On that note, my friends, if you understood the three topics as well as the approach that we take to understanding them, the PYQs, the MCQs, right, do consider leaving me a like. And if there is any particular feedback for me, you can leave me a comment too, or you can reach out to me on my Instagram channel. Right. On that note, it's a wrap from me, Bhuvan Apurva Jha, for StudyIQ IAS English. Till I see you in the next class on Monday morning, do consider leaving me the answers in the comment box. Have a productive weekend. I'll see you Monday morning, 7 a.m. Bye.